Wapadabadoo! Welcome back to another 3 philosophy ideas you probably haven't thought about. Boom! Number 1. Unnecessary things are the best. So think about it. What are unnecessary things, first of all? Well, unnecessary things are like looking at the sky and thinking that it's beautiful. Wow! What a beautiful sky we have. And that's not necessary. We never had to have a blue sky. We never had to see that as beautiful. The very idea of beauty, in a sense, wasn't necessary. It's not necessary for us to even have the sense that some things are beautiful. We don't have to have the sense that walking in nature and looking at trees and being amazed at the wonders of this world is good. We never actually necessarily had to even feel any kind of emotion. Those things are, in a sense, unnecessary. They weren't necessary for existence. You could very well imagine a world where everyone's kind of like a robot. No emotions, no nothing, and everyone just does what is evolutionarily beneficial. With no emotions, with no sense of happiness, gratitude, fulfillment, no sense of beauty. None of these things are necessary, yet they are the best parts of life. You see, the best parts of life are the unnecessary things. Necessary things like, getting sleep. What? That's not the best part of life. I don't think most people would say that, wow, I love sleeping. Maybe you love the feeling of being recovered. But once again, that's not necessary. The feeling of being recovered, the feeling of having energy and being energized, that's not necessary. So the unnecessary part, which is feeling recovered and energized, is good. It is great. But the necessary part of actually sleeping is like, who really cares? Same with drinking water. Nobody probably says, man, drinking water is so fun. No. But if it's a hot summer day and you're dehydrated and you get a cold glass of water, you might say that feeling, the feeling which is unnecessary, you never actually had to have that feeling to survive and to exist. That feeling is good. So the best things in life are unnecessary. The best things in life are the things that didn't have to exist, yet they exist anyway. So let's be grateful for everything that didn't have to exist, that still somehow exists. Number 2, ignorance might give us knowledge. Now, what does that even mean? Well, you see, there was this puzzle that I saw, and it was like 4 prisoners with different colored hats, and they had to, they're of course kidnapped by aliens or robots or something, and you have to know which prisoner correctly guesses their own hat's color when they cannot see it and they can only see in front of them and so on. And the person who gets it correct is the second from left. The person who does only see one other hat. And it's because of the lack of information why he gets that. He gets information out of the very ignorance of the other person. You see, the person at the very top of the stairs who can see 2 hats doesn't know which colored hat his is, if it's black or white, because he can see 2 hats which are both black and white, and because there's only 2 hats of each color, it could be either one. But the second person, from the ignorance of the first person, can guess their hat color, because from the ignorance of the very first person at the top of the stairs, he can guess that his hat is a different color than the person in front of him. And well, that made me think, maybe the very idea of ignorance can give us something, because we cannot know something that actually gives us knowledge of us not being able to know something. And it got me to think that when we look at something like book, think about a character in a book. Let's say they were somehow conscious and they existed in that world. They would never be able to know how the world came into existence, because they could never come outside the world and observe the person writing the book. Or some character in a simulation could never know what the world they exist in is, because they can never come outside the simulation and watch the person writing the code of the simulation. And so it got me thinking, well, if we do not know what this world is, we do not know how it came into existence with some absolute sense, we don't have a scientific answer yet. Maybe that ignorance is giving us information. So this ignorance, of course, maybe not, this is no absolute evidence in any sense, but maybe this ignorance is pointing to a creator. The same way the person in a book or the person in a simulation can never know how the simulation was made or how the book was made, because they cannot observe outside of the very world they exist in, which they would need for them to know why the world they exist in exists. Now we're in the same situation. We don't know how this world came into existence, and maybe we would have to be outside this world to know how this world came into existence. And in those situations it would likely be a creator, but who knows? Number 3, why objective morality kinda exists no matter what. So a lot of people say that, well, that there is no objective morality, there is simply preferences, it's all subjective and so on. But what if you think about it like this? Let's say there is a maximally good thing. It is so good in every single way that no one can ever in any possible universe have a negative preference towards it. So everyone, no matter the universe they exist in, no matter what, they would always see it as positive, and good. They would always see it as good. And that's because it is such a great thing that no one can ever have a preference against it. It's so good. So we have this maximally great being, let's say. Now, if you were to say that, well, if everyone in every possible universe, in every possible situation, is to see that thing as good because it is so good and so great, then isn't that basically objectively good? Even if it's in all senses, you say that everything is just good and bad, that's just a preference. In this situation, if you are to have such a thing, which is maximally great, then isn't it kind of objectively good? Because no one in any possible universe can see this thing as evil. Wouldn't that kind of mean that it is objectively good? I mean, isn't that kind of what objective means? That in all possible universes, everyone would see it as good? And now let's say that we take the maximally great being and we take one step back, literally one step back. We take the maximally great being minus one greatness, minus one good. If it's still at the position where everyone would say, well, that's a good thing, I would prefer that over something else. Isn't that still objectively good? And then we keep going, just keep slowly moving towards down from the maximally greatness to not maximally great. Maximal evil on the other side, of course. And we keep slowly moving towards a step. And then at some point, we find a point where, okay, now there's like certain amount of people who see this as not good. They don't prefer it anymore. So that would be the point where anything above that is objectively good. objectively moral, objectively right, and everything under that would be neutral or down to subjective preference. And then of course to the flip side, we take a maximally evil thing. They're so evil that no person in any possible universe could have a preference towards it. And well, isn't that once again kind of objectively evil now, isn't it? And then we once again go down the step. We make it one step better, and one step better, and one step better. And then at some point there comes a point where some people say, yeah, I'd prefer that. Wouldn't that kind of mean that now we, in a sense, have an objective morality? At some point, like even if everything is just a preference, even in that world where everything is just preferences and there is no moral law, wouldn't we still have an objective morality? Because there would, if we take the maximally great or the maximally evil thing that is so evil or so good that everyone agrees on that, it might as well be objective. And then you get maybe that as good and then the other as bad, and then you have this huge ground in the middle which is like down to subjective preference. But you would still have things that are basically objectively evil, objectively bad, because it would be so good or so evil that everyone agrees on that. So maybe objective morality exists in all the people who deny it. Moral relativists. Checkmate. But who knows? What do you think? And anyways, thanks for watching and have a great day.